works for a school district in Fernbrook, and has is so Fern. Okay, thank you, Lori. Fernbrook Elementary in Maple Grove is where she works, and of course we've seen that GoFundMe that they've put together for her and for John as they continue to recover. We haven't gotten much detail as far as how they're doing, their conditions, other than yesterday we know that they did come out of surgery, and that they're expected to survive. We haven't gotten much information on the extent of the injuries there.
We did hear.
Lori, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so that particular GoFundMe, Fernbrook PTO, I believe, is the one who put that on. Is that, what did you say? You said 90? $91,000. So that's been growing exponentially.
I can read, if you're talking about Yvette, we did get a late this evening, we did get an update from Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah, she tweeted out a text from Yvette. It reads in part this: our family is so, this is from Yvette, the woman you see there, the husband of John, reads in part, our family is so humbled by the love and outpouring we've received from everyone. John is enduring many surgeries right now and is closer every hour to being out of the woods. And this is the part that struck me tonight when I was reading this earlier. John took 9 bullet hits. She says, I took 8 bullet hits. And we are both incredibly lucky to be alive, and that is an understatement if ever I've heard one. And we mentioned that a GoFundMe for both John and Yvette.
John, known as
a recovery
disability advocate for so many things, and we'll continue to talk about them throughout our coverage tonight, as that is so important. The latest developments, though, a very important development, are Paul Bloom. It sounds like you have a little bit more information for us.
Yeah, just a comment I wanted to pass along to our viewers. We are in the State's Emergency Operations Center in the North Metro. We have been promised a 10:30 news conference with officials that I have now confirmed will include the Brooklyn Park Police Chief. We met yesterday at the news conference, Mark Bruley. I asked if there was anything I could convey from him, and he said just that this was the largest manhunt in the state's history. 43 hours, and we had the suspect in custody. Leveraged hundreds of federal, state, county, and local law enforcement. Quote, historic and amazing. The thoughts of Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, of course. It was his city where Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman were shot and killed yesterday around 3:30 in the morning. 43 hours later, Vance Belter, the suspected gunman, political assassin, is in custody. He has been charged. We shared those charges with you that have been unsealed in Hennepin County. We also understand there are federal charges filed against him. We haven't seen that complaint yet. And I wanted to read the words. The Ramsey County Sheriff's Office was the first place we saw that photo of Belter under arrest. Quote, the face of evil. After relentless and determined police work, the killer is now in custody, thanks to the dedication of multiple agencies working together along with support from the community. Justice now one step closer, and it's that photo of him in handcuffs. The law enforcement in those camouflage, almost military-looking fatigues, have him under arrest and in custody, and now the criminal case prosecution begins against him. We're about 5 minutes away now from what we expect to hear from all sorts of officials. We've no word yet if the governor's coming back here tonight, but certainly, as I mentioned there, the Brooklyn Park Police Chief will be here. A huge sigh of relief in that community. I am being asked to try to maybe play that community one more time. This room is getting kind of loud, but this was the audio of the arrest. 12 seconds. We played it several times for you. If you're just joining us now, it's probably worth trying again. But again, the room's gotten a lot louder in the last few minutes as media has poured in for this 10:30 news conference. Here it is. Listen closely.
Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice. We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Do that one more time.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
And just having that picture on screen with it, it really puts you in that moment, in that field. Again, as we understood it, as one police source commented, that he was crawling in on the ground. He was spotted above by drone. A trail camera had picked up an image of him earlier. And again, he chose to end this peacefully and then did follow his voice, the voices, and in custody there. So again, I'm curious to see the tone that it's taken. Clearly relief. We spoke earlier in the day about, just anecdotally, another police chief in the Metro who has officers outside every elected official 24 hours, each hour of the day since this manifesto, and names, even names not on that list, police were guarded. Opened this emergency operations center yesterday to coordinate this search. Dozens of agencies, federal, all the alphabet soup of the federal agencies, state, local, police, but this, I know deep down, I know Mark Bruley pretty well, this was personal for Brooklyn Park, and to have this man under arrest right now means so much. And I shared his words with you a minute ago, but huge relief in that community tonight.
Sounds like we're a couple of minutes away from the press conference, and we've been told that Governor Walz will be there. We imagine that when that time, when and if it came, that Governor Walz would want to be at the forefront there to deliver that news, as he was the one who had to deliver the horrible, tragic news Saturday morning of the deaths of his friends and colleagues, and the massive loss for the state of Minnesota and for those families.
And before we get going on that update from law enforcement, I want to read a bit about what this man is facing. The complaint has been unsealed, the warrant. It was unsealed the moment he was arrested. I can tell you the counts at which he will be, at least at this juncture, charged with. Count 1 would be second-degree murder with intent. Count 2, that would be the first victim. Count 2, the second victim, second-degree murder with intent, not premeditated. You can see them on your screen. I will read them for you. Some descriptions: that on the first count on June 14th, Hennepin County, Vance Luther Belter, acting with the intent to kill, caused the death of victim 1. We can presume that was either Melissa or her husband Mark, using a firearm. And count 2, same description, victim 2 using a firearm. Then we move on to the attempted, which was count 3. That is with the Hoffman family, Yvette and John Hoffman, and count 5, or count 4, I should say, also murder in the second degree with intent, not premeditated. Those likely might get amended to second degree, depending on how, or second degree attempted versus second degree murder. So we will watch that. And the bail as it's set right now would be set at felony level bail, $5 million.
I don't know, guys, if we want to double box here with the shot of the press conference. There we go. Yeah, just to kind of visually let people know. Yeah, let's stay on this here, because it's imminent. It's going to be happening shortly. We want to just let folks know that we're going to take this live as soon as it goes. But we did get some more information here. Of course, Paul just played I don't even know how you describe it, that hearing that audio and seeing his photo, it just...
And that audio was recorded by a neighbor in the area as this was going down. They were able to record it. I don't know how they did it, because it was so clear. They clearly were very close to where law enforcement were, recorded it on their phone, sent it to Paul. Yeah. And the audio that we've been playing is the actual arrest of Belter there in that farm field on the Belter property, we believe. If not on the property, very near the Belter property in Green Isle there, just a little southwest of the Twin Cities. Again, this is a presser getting set up to give all of you at home and all of us an update on this arrest and where we go from here. Obviously, this is related, if you're just joining us here at the bottom of the hour, it's 10:30 now. This was the capture, the arrest without incident of Vance Luther Belter, 57 years old. He will now, as we are understanding from this complaint that's been unsealed, be charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of murder in the second degree. Attempted will likely be revised when the charges come down, as long as John Hoffman, Senator Hoffman, and his wife Yvette continue to improve.
Just doing a little bit of a mic check here and getting everything set, but yeah, we're told it's going to happen any minute. It's been such a long journey, and there's so much relief in tonight. Of course, there will be now a trial, and there will be more attention that is put on Vance Bolter, and you know, we want to keep and we will continue to talk about the victims here, of course, those who have lost their lives, their families, the impact, the children who have been left behind. I think as parents, you know, I think you just keep thinking about all of those who have been left behind here, particularly the children. And the one daughter, Hope, who was actually there when all of this happened. There's just so much attention that needs to be paid and so much support that needs to be given to them first and foremost. You think about sort of the next tier, which is those other folks who were on that list and what they're going through. And then, you know, other lawmakers who may not have been on that list, but whose families are saying to them, is this worth it? Is this worth it?
Yeah, I think it gives anybody with any public persona a great deal of pause that there are people out there like this. I shared earlier, I had been in Canada up until this morning, making my way back. And the magnitude of this event resonated up there in the remote parts of Ontario. And as from a personal standpoint, it just made me reflect on, I'm in a part of the country where it seems so pristine and so beautiful, yet we're reminded that these kind of things are happening all too often, right in our backyard in this particular case. And it's devastating for those people affected by it. And these people are so closely affected by it that it just breaks your heart.
Yeah. At the same time, we heard from so many of the lawmakers who said we cannot normalize this. We cannot treat this as if this is sort of a symptom of the society that we live in. This is not normal. This is evil. This is an act of evil that needs to be sort of separated from, I think, everything else, because this is different and this is evil, and we can't normalize it.
I was listening to some of the cable outlets talking about this event from afar, and one of the questions that was asked of one of the people that was being interviewed is, why do you think this would happen? And there is no why. I mean, you can't sort of reason this sort of thing as to what the reasoning behind something so horrific happens. It happens for people who are just absolutely, you know, outside the bounds of normalcy and outside the bounds of how we all think. And this is something that's why it's so profoundly bothersome and hurtful to the people that have to see this, especially Minnesotans who know these people, both publicly and personally.
And at the same time, you know, the lesson here, the outcome in honor of the legacy of someone like Speaker Emerita Hortman and her husband Mark is that hopefully we can do better in our tones, in our rhetoric, in our you know, relationships with each other, especially in the political world. We do have one statement here that we can share with you.
Let's look at a statement from Senator Smith's. This is obviously on the suspect's arrest, so this statement came out just moments ago. Thank you for the incredible effort of law enforcement. Simple, to the point. Senator Tina Smith, Democrat, Minnesota. These will come in, and we will share as many of these with you as we can, both tonight and tomorrow. This is from Kelly Morrison, Democrat, Minnesota Representative Kelly Morrison. So incredibly grateful. She was here, this morning. So incredibly grateful to all of our state, local, and federal law enforcement who've been working together seamlessly and tirelessly all weekend to keep our community safe and track the assailant down. I want to say, too, this person impersonating a police officer is hurtful for every law enforcement officer out there who wears the badge, who wears the uniform, that someone would do this and stain in incredible ways the efforts, the hard work, the protectionism that they give all of us every single day, that someone would do this under the guise of a police officer.
Right, and steal the sense of security of anybody who has an officer knock at their door, and now from here on out may wonder and question. I wanted to mention to Representative Morrison, Senator Tina Smith, both we were able to confirm were on the list.
Yeah.
They were on this list. Representative Morrison, who was here this morning to do an interview with us, was here, you know, understandably with heavy security around her. And, you know, she was here, and she actually ran into our producer, Lori Fisher, and you know, it's an emotional day for everybody, and it's Father's Day and everything, and Lori says it's okay to share it, but you know, Lori just broke down and just started crying because I think everybody's kind of carrying it right here. And Representative Morrison went and gave her a hug, and you know, Lori said, I should be hugging you, you know, but it's a time right now where we're seeing folks, just speaking with a lot of lawmakers, former lawmakers right now, they are all saying the same thing. They are checking on each other. Things have changed. Everything has changed now, and we'll see how we can do better moving forward. Again, if you're just joining us, this news conference is scheduled to begin any moment now. We know that, well, we have heard that the governor is going to be there to sort of lead this, and that may be just, you know, getting him there and getting everybody situated, maybe what the delay is. But until then, just kind of keeping you, getting you caught up with what's been happening. It was shortly, what, 9?
Yeah, I mean, we got our
9?
first sourcing that something was happening via drone, via trail cam. That was about 8:45 this evening, and it happened very quickly after that. The presumption was that they had the suspects surrounded in an area by Green Isle, the area where the Belter family farm is. It was either on the property, near the property. They had them pinned down. Law enforcement in great presence was there. And then a short time later, we heard, and if you haven't heard Paul Bloom's audio sent to us by one of his sources who was right there when law enforcement was arresting him, maybe we can bring that up quickly if we can. And if just let me know. Sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm talking to Lori now.
We may be close.
It's all good. But it basically was you could hear over the bullhorn asking him to put up his hands, walk toward the sound. There was a warrant out for his arrest. When I say his, they're talking about Vance Belter. He was laying down in a cornfield at the time, stood up, and as we now know, walked without incident to law enforcement and surrendered.
Which is the picture you see.
And there's the picture
below.
as he was being taken into custody. Again, this has all taken place within 2 hours of right now.
It's incredible. Law enforcement, we know more than 100 officers have been in Sibley County today. The latest update we got today from BCA was about 5:30, and at that time they told us they were pretty heavily focused on Sibley County, and it looks like they might be getting ready to come up here, and we're not gonna miss a second of this. So we're gonna take you there as soon as it gets going. But it just looks like they're getting there, and there's no audio yet. So. You know, this is getting a little bit of a feedback there, guys. An incredible couple of days, starting with our own Karen Scullen, who at about 3 in the morning, Saturday morning, woke up in the middle of the night, checked her phone, and happened to see something was amiss. Something was happening. Had no idea at the time, but started just checking and making calls. And within a few hours, we had started to hear via sources of the shootings, and then a little bit later we start to hear it could be lawmakers, and then of course within a couple of hours everyone's worst fears were confirmed. And so that was sort of how it all played out on Saturday morning. The search, the scramble for them to try to secure evidence in so many different locations, the Minneapolis home that Vance Belter had been renting with roommates, where you know, he'd smashed out a window of a vehicle. The vehicle they found today is that from that home. I guess, you know, they'll hopefully let us know these things. But the multiple locations that these law enforcement officers have had to sort of hone in on, in addition to keeping open the idea that he maybe has fled.
Yeah, this man had a manifesto. He had a plan in place. He, as we understand it, changed clothing at one point. And he had contacted one of his roommates and said something to the effect of, "I will probably die today," whatever the reference. And this was still on Saturday morning, early Saturday morning. About 6 a.m. Saturday morning is when that text went to
and the crimes occurred around 3 a.m., so that was a few hours later. Yeah,
so it was a very rapidly unfolding event, and the news of this traveled far and wide. From a personal standpoint, I was on Lake of the Woods in Ontario, and the news of that got to everyone that I was with by about 9 o'clock Saturday morning, and it resonated throughout Canada and really throughout the world.
And it was-
People were awestruck that this could happen, would happen in this day and age, but I guess in some ways not surprised.
Yeah, and it was a day when, of course, we had the No Kings protests planned here that did go on in St. Paul as well as around the state. Of course, the Capitol celebrations in Washington, D.C. for the 250th birthday of the Army and President Trump's birthday, that was going on. So, you know, the eyes of the country were already sort of in that political space, but to have this sort of a crime committed, and as Governor Walz put it during his news conference, you know, politically motivated, we, I guess, have yet to kind of see what some of those other details are, other than the No Kings sort of papers that were found in the vehicle, which is why law enforcement and the governor asked people not to go to those protests. They just didn't know at that time because the suspect was still out there, and they didn't know what might happen. But you know, the journey to get here, you know, you've been covering stories, you know, a little bit longer than I have, and I don't know
Long
that
time.
I can remember another sort of not just story like this, you know, with the deaths involved, but also just this incredible work by law enforcement to hone in on
amazing,
him.
really.
It has been unbelievable.
And as Paul just stated a short time ago, the largest sort of effort by law enforcement to put a net around this man, and eventually come to this arrest tonight. Yeah, and you know, the first response of people, I talked to people on the trip down from up north today. Heartbreak
Yes.
was the first response. Heartbreak for the Hortman family, Hoffman family. Here's our update there from law enforcement. They're getting set to speak at the mic. They're testing right now. Let's go ahead and listen in and see. I don't know.
Department
Yeah,
of
let's
Public
listen in.
Safety Commissioner
Yeah.
Bob Jacobson, J-A-C-O-B.
This is the list of speakers, we believe.
We can just take it live, guys. We can take it full and let's listen in.
Drew Evans, E-V-A-N-S. After that, you'll be hearing from Brooklyn Park Police Department Chief Mark Bruley, B-R-U, Mark Bruley, and then State Patrol Colonel Geiger, G-E-I-G-E-R. Yep. I'm sorry, I'll get that for you. Lieutenant Colonel Geiger from the Minnesota State Patrol. Yep.
Jeremy, J-A-R-E-M-Y. What was that?
Jeremy.
Common spelling. Mark. Yes, Bruley.
It's Jeremy, G-E-I-G-E-R.
G-E-I-G-E-R is last name Geiger, correct.
All right, you're just getting set for that press conference there to detail and outline the arrest tonight of the suspect, Vance Luther Belter, 57 years old, the man alleged to have politically assassinated Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, attempted to kill. That's the alleged. There's the state capitol where a memorial is now growing for Melissa and her husband Mark, and of course the injuring of Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette as
And
well. That
this-
is at our state capitol.
It is a live image right now as we take a look at that and remember the victims. And then as soon as this press conference starts, we'll go ahead and take that. But you can see so many people leaving behind notes and flowers, candles, and you can see that photograph there of Mark and of Melissa together. And just really poignant sight right now as we get ready to get some details here on the arrest of who police believe was at the hands of their death.
This whole thing came, as you know, Amy, and as many of our viewers know, and certainly those of us that cover the Capitol, this came just really days after a bipartisan bill was passed and signed by Governor Walz, the state budget for 2 years. This shooting, horrific political assassination as it's being described, occurred just days after that bipartisan bill was signed. The legislature left been called to a special session to finish the budget. They did that, and then just days later, this is
Here
where
we
we
go.
are. Let's listen in to Governor Walz.
Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone. To the law enforcement who stand here and the hundreds who are involved in this, the state of Minnesota owes you a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you. You ran towards the danger and you served the state of Minnesota. This is a great example of coordination and collaboration. Multiple agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating together in a way to protect the public and close this hunt around. Multiple agencies were there as FBI laid hands on it and Minnesota State Patrol put the handcuffs on. One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. Melissa Hortman was the core of who our values were. She had a hand in so many things that happened. The building that we stand in, she helped usher through so that we could respond from the State Emergency Operations Center with the professionalism and giving the tools necessary to law enforcement to do their job. To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act. State grieves with you. To John and Yvette Hoffman, the latest news is Senator Hoffman came out of his final surgery and is moving towards that, towards recovery. Yvette is healing. And I think when the story comes out, and I'd like to say on behalf of the state of Minnesota, the heroic actions by the Hoffman family and their daughter Hope saved countless lives, and we are grateful. Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will continue to investigate. We will keep you informed. We'll spare no expense and no work to make sure that that happens. A moment in this country where we watched violence erupt. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. Now's the time for us to recommit to the core values of this country. And each and every one of us can do it. Talk to a neighbor rather than arguing. Debate an issue. Shake hands. Find common ground. This is who Melissa Hortman was. In the first negotiating session that I had a chance to work with her, she got all the partners in the room, and she provided each and every one of us a copy of a book called Getting to Yes. And the whole premise was debating with a sense of goodwill, a sense of trying to come to compromises that serve everyone. And because of her, we did that. Because of her, we did that year after year after year. That's the embodiment of how things are supposed to work. It's not about hatred. It's not about mean tweets. It's not about demeaning someone. It's leading with grace and compassion and vision and compromise and decency. That was taken from us in Minnesota with the murder of Speaker Hortman. So for each and every one of us to truly honor, and we will continue to honor that spirit, but we will need to do it in just more than actions in a memorial. Conducting ourselves in the spirit that Melissa Hortman did her work is what the country needs to heal. I will once again say the deep debt of gratitude. These professionals standing behind us and countless others. This was, you'll hear from them, incredibly complex. And to take this suspect in with no life of life or injuries to civilian population, and to bring him in alive so he can serve justice, which he will do in Minnesota, is an incredible thing that we are grateful for. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the professionals, starting with Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota, Bob Jacobson. Thank you.
Good evening. It's good to see you all here tonight. Thank you for coming in. My name is Bob Jacobson. I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety. And again, it's my honor to serve in that position. First of all, I want to thank all of the law enforcement agencies that have been working tirelessly over the past 2 years since the shooting at Senator Hoffman's home. The coordination between state, local, and federal law enforcement partners is the reason we are here tonight, and the suspect is in custody. Bolter exploited the trust our uniforms are meant to represent. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility. We want to thank community members across the state for their support, for their tips, and their information. And I want to thank Governor Walz for his continued support through this very difficult time. With that, I will pass this off to Superintendent Drew Evans of the BCA. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Drew Evans. I'm Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. As was noted and was previously described, Vance Bolter was taken into custody in Sibley County. We were with you earlier today when we provided information about the manhunt and the myriad of law enforcement that have come together working in partnership so that this evil cannot be continued. The first step in a case like this is that we take him into custody, and then the work will continue and begin to make sure that we have all the evidence we need to ensure that he is held accountable for his crimes. Please bear with me, but I think it's important because it has been noted by the governor, just to give you some background on the teams that were down there, and I may even be missing some in terms of this because there were law enforcement partners, not just from the Twin Cities, but across the state of Minnesota that came together. From the Brooklyn Park Police breathe a sigh of relief as quickly as possible as we came together in an incredibly complex set of circumstances in that. He was arrested, as you saw earlier this evening, in the area of 35600 block of 200th Street, Green Isle. What happened in that is, as we noted, there was a manhunt going throughout the day in that area that we've discussed previously, and there was information provided that he was seen in the area. When that information was provided to the investigators that were conducting the ground search, they converged on the area with a number of SWAT teams with the assistance of the Air Wing from Minnesota State Patrol. And we'll provide a few more details about the end of coming into custody in a little bit, but he was taken into custody at that time. He is in custody, and a reminder for anybody that was not, when we've previously said that, taken into custody under a state criminal warrant. That information will be made public, if it is not already, detailing the complaint that he is charged in the cases at this time with the murders of Speaker Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, also with the shootings in John Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman for those crimes, and will be moving forward. We are also in close contact with our federal partners, both the FBI, United States Attorney's Office, who are examining whether or not additional charges should be brought at the federal level related to this at this time. There is a lot of investigation that continues, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief.
This is a tornado warning.
I just want to tell, certainly for the communities of Champlin, City of Brooklyn Park, you both have incredibly professional police departments that work day in, day out and tirelessly in this situation to bring justice and work towards that, not only for the families and the loved ones and the community that are impacted, but for the entire state of Minnesota. And our teams are incredibly proud to work alongside them and all the law enforcement partners. And so with that, I will turn it over to Chief Bruley for some comments on this, and the work will continue in partnership with them and others moving forward. Chief.
Good evening. I'm Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. Just a few comments. One, I'm very proud to tell you that we took the suspect into custody who is responsible for this. That was within 43 hours of the incident. There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history. Just down at the scene where he was taken into custody, there was 20 different SWAT teams over an extremely large area hunting this individual down to take him into custody. I believe that the state of Minnesota and certainly the city of Brooklyn Park should be extremely proud of the police officers within the city of Brooklyn Park, but the partnerships that we had are unprecedented between the federal agents, the county, the locals, and others around. It is absolutely an incredible task what went on. Essentially, the Brooklyn Park Police Department was turned over into an operations center, and that's all that hundreds of detectives worked on tirelessly for 43 hours. So while this has come to some conclusion where we've made an arrest, there is a ton of work that needs to be done. So I encourage community members, if there's evidence, information, or other things, please continue to feed that information to the Brooklyn Park Police Department so that we can fully investigate this and present a complete case to both the federal jurisdiction and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. With that, I'll turn it over to the State Patrol.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Geiger. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel with the Minnesota State Patrol, the Assistant Chief. The Minnesota State Patrol, along with countless other partners, were responsible for this arrest. The collaborative effort, I cannot stress enough how outstanding that was, helped ensure the suspect's arrest did not result in the injury of any law enforcement that was down there and in the area. We had special response teams on the scene near 200 streets in Sibley County. Several partner law enforcement SWAT teams positioned to form a perimeter at that point in time. The State Patrol also provided the air support that was talked about earlier today. The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time. There was no use of force by any member of law enforcement that was out there, and the suspect was taken into custody without any use of force. Thank you.
With that, we will open it up for a few questions. Reminder, please introduce yourself, your media organization. If you have a question for one of the specific individuals, please feel free to point that out as well.
Maggie Pesco with NBC News. Can I ask anyone up here who can speak to it, did the suspect make any key mistakes that you feel like has led to his eventual capture?
You know, the question is were there any key mistakes? We certainly, at this point, there's a lot of information we can't share right now in this. What I will tell you is there is some incredibly dedicated law enforcement personnel, criminal intelligence analysts that were out working day in, day out, working together. And what I will tell you is that that the public certainly is always of his assistance to us in law enforcement, and incredibly diligent people in the area that provided us the assistance that we needed to get our teams that were already down there that last piece over. But they were certainly in the area and working diligently together on that.
One's going to be one at a time, guys.
Drew, Border Health and Care 11, do you have any indication that anyone helped him?
The question is any indication anybody helped him? We continue to look into that. I don't have anything beyond what we shared earlier today. This investigation, as Chief Bruley noted, will be continuing to expand at this point in time to make sure that we continue to look at all angles of this. And everybody did help him. We will certainly hold them accountable for doing that in this process.
Drew, Adrian Broadus from NBC News. Can you tell us how the Hoffmans helped save lives, and what did the suspect say when he was taken into custody?
The question was how the Hoffmans help save lives and what he, okay, I don't have the specific, and then what did he say when he was taken into custody? I don't have the specifics on what he said when he was taken into custody. You know, we're incredibly grateful that the Hoffmans are still here with us at this point in time, and that they will be hopefully on a continued path to recovery, and that they will provide us the information. We've been able to talk to them today, and they will be providing key information to us as part of this investigation moving forward.
Sir, can I ask you, from CBS News, did the suspect have a phone with him when he was caught? Was he tracked in any way, or was it just sightings and tips?
At the end, the question was, did he have a phone with him? I don't have the specifics on everything that was with him when he was arrested at this time. I will say he was armed. And that he came when he was taken into custody, but we'll be sifting through all of that information from there. What's that? I can't on the weapons at this time, so Paul.
Fox 9, just kind of elaborating on sort of the Hoffman question. To me, the encounter at Speaker Horton's house with, I believe, the Brooklyn Park Police, there was a gunfire there. The fact is, you then have to abandon that vehicle with several weapons.
Yeah.
How significant was that in preventing any further tragedy and ending it with him on the ground in Sibley County?
Yeah, the question is, again, expanding on the Hoffmans and providing addition. What I'll tell you, Chief Bruley mentioned this yesterday, and his police officers going to check proactively on Speaker Hortman's home at that time. If that had not happened, I have every confidence that this would have continued throughout the day. By his officers encountering him at that, it was forced to abandon the vehicle that he had at that time and lead to what we got to today. So by that incident occurring and the law enforcement communication that was occurring, it allowed the proactive approach that was able to get to the point where they were able to now eventually take him into custody today. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, there's a little bit of detail that the Ramsey County Sheriff has provided. I just wanted to see if we can nail it down. So it's the detail that he had provided to the Star Tribune is that for about an hour, Bolter had tried to evade arrest and that 8 teams crawled in a ditch to try to corral him. I don't know if you have that level of detail, but additionally, because you were able to take him into custody without incident, what did your law enforcement officers say to him to warn him out and have him taken peaceably?
So the question is about the teams and then what was done to get him into custody. So we don't get into operational details for the safety of our law enforcement going forward in terms of what it is. But what I can say is the incredible teamwork that was done and the large number of law enforcement certainly put us in a position where they were able to maneuver into this area to safely put him in a place where, you know, I don't know what was going through his head and I wouldn't speculate, but they have incredibly professional teams that are trained on this and how to take somebody into custody, and they provided the commands and he gave up peacefully.
Superintendent Jonah Kaplan from WCCO and CBS News. First, if you could just speak personally for you and all your colleagues. I imagine this is a relief for a lot of you. Can you talk about what it means to you personally to have this done? Only a few hours ago, you weren't sure if he was in the state, let alone in the country.
The question is the relief for all of us. I mean, the relief for us in law enforcement is we feel an incredible amount of pressure to bring a person into custody, to bring safety to the community. These professionals behind me and their teams, this is what they do. This is what they get paid to do, and they're honored to do the work on behalf of Minnesotans every single day. So the relief is that we can bring that sense of relief to communities across Minnesota, legislators that were on that list, and that's what we want to do.
Matt Sepik with the Youngers. At what point did you get the call and from whom generally that he was in that area in the arena?
The question was on the call and when did we get it? It was happening over the time. I don't have the specific timeline, but we were alerted as soon as there was a spotting of the person in the area for all of the command staff here, and as our teams continue to work and as they worked in and honed in.
Can you speak a little more about the technology that was used? You said today earlier that you received about 400 tips.
Yeah.
We know there was surveillance footage that was used for pictures. You just mentioned, or someone talked about the air team. Was it a fixed wing? Was it a helicopter that was following him? What role did technology?
Yeah, the question is what role, and I can't get into all the technology, obviously. Just some of it is that we do. Don't share the information to make sure that we protect it so it's utilized going forward. However, I will say that both UAVs throughout the day are incredibly important to our teams on unmanned aerial vehicles that we use, that there were numerous ones out there providing that. And then our helicopter in this situation provides an incredibly important bird's eye view that also allows us special views to be able to see individuals such as infrared and others that we utilize on a regular basis. So technology in cases like this are incredible tools to be able to supplement the great hard work of all the people that were on the ground every day. Let's go here first. So right now he is being interviewed at a law enforcement facility. More information on where he will actually be ultimately will be released at a later time.
What law enforcement agency or facility?
I can't share where he is currently, but that information will be available soon.
More specific about the setting in which he was, I know there are things you can't give away, but we've seen things like trails and fields, and you're talking about him crawling. What can you tell us about where he was hiding during this time?
Yeah, so this is, where was he hiding? This is in a rural area. These are fields and different wooded settings around, and that's where he was ultimately captured. Sibley County is, a rural county in the state of Minnesota, and so it's what a lot of that streams, fields, woods, crops, and so where he was ultimately taken into custody was in a field.
Did the infrared technology help find him, identify him from here?
I don't.
The commissioner had mentioned some of that earlier. I wonder if that's something that helped.
Yes, absolutely. It assisted previously, and they were out there. The helicopter was out there before the sun went down. But after that happened, yes, that technology did come into play.
How long did you know that he was there?
I'll turn that back over to the superintendent here too, but I don't think that that information is available right now.
Mark Bruley, Police Chief, Brooklyn Park. The question is how long did we know that he was there? A vehicle that we believe that he was in was spotted many hours before and had been abandoned. An alert police officer believed that he may have seen the individual running into the woods, and that started a large-scale perimeter that we set up, or down in Sibley County set up, and we started to deploy resources, including the Brooklyn Park SWAT team, and along with many other SWAT teams, to contain an extremely large area, knowing that this is a very dangerous individual. During that, we got privy to additional information of an individual that was in the woods, and that search went on for many hours until ultimately we were able to locate him in the woods. In approximately an hour and a half or so, we were able to close the distance in with the technology and the State Patrol helicopter, and where we were able to call him out to us. Yeah, it's absolutely way too soon to say that right now. That's where the investigation, we have been just solely focused on the manhunt. And the goal is to give some calm to the situation of many individuals that were on the list that were worried about their safety. And this is a very dangerous individual for our community, and that's why so many resources and such a great collaboration came together to focus on removing him from society so that we can restore some sort of calm and bring some healing to our community and to our state. Now begins the hard work of looking at what the motive is, looking at putting this case together, and so that's yet to come.
Hey, Mark, those are the people that were on the list. What other? I know there are politicians from Wisconsin on this. What other states were people on this?
It was multiple states. I don't have the exhaustive list, but it was multiple states that were on there.
Do you have some states that were on the list?
We can. There's a few. I don't want to say it because it won't be exhaustive, but Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, some others that were on there. There was a variety. Nebraska, Iowa. We've had contact. What I will tell you, and I will not get into any more specifics beyond that, we are in coordination with our federal partners and our fusion centers in those states to coordinate with local law enforcement and the FBI in those states and the state fusion centers that are there to be able to provide that information and notify those individuals that they were on that list.
Are you concerned that there's other people out there that could have been working with them?
The question is, are we concerned there's other people out there that could be working with them? We will fully explore that. I've said on this, we are relatively confident, we are confident that the violence that he committed and the murders he committed and the attempted murders, that he conducted that activity alone. We will be exploring if there are any broader network. We have not uncovered any of that at this time, but that will be part of our investigation, and we will fully explore that. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks. Thank you. We can go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, there's the end of that multi-unit press conference detailing the capture and arrest in the state's largest manhunt in history for the suspect in the murders of Melissa Hortman, Representative Hortman, and her husband Mark, and State Senator John Hoffman, and the injuring of Hoffman and his wife Yvette, happening Saturday morning. Vance Luther Bolter, 57 years old. They detailed how he was spotted. It looked like an abandoned vehicle, a man heading into a woods, and that's what started today's manhunt in that specific area of Green Isle, which was a area that they had investigated and gone over with a fine-tooth comb Saturday as a result of it being in the family property.
Yeah, before we kind of get into some more of those details, and I know Paul's standing by as well, just the update that we received on Senator Hoffman and Yvette is that Senator Hoffman, of course, came out of his final surgery, is what we were told here tonight, and Yvette, I guess he characterized it as she's healing.
Yeah.
So just wanted to let folks know that that's. Oh, okay. Lori tells us that we do have a statement from the Hoffman family. Let's take a look at that as we want to try to just remember the folks who are so impacted here. But she says this is about 3 pages, but you can see there. Let's see this is from the Hoffman family. Oh, wait a second. Is this?
This is from Yvette, yeah?
Yeah, it's a little far lower. But first and foremost, John and I hold a deep and profound gratitude for the work of our law enforcement agencies and the public for their help in bringing the suspect to justice while diligently keeping our communities safe during this extremely difficult and senseless event. So as I'm reading this, Randy, John and I, this sounds like this is from Yvette.
Yeah.
John and I are both incredibly lucky to be alive. We continue our healing journey and are humbled by the outpouring of love and support our family has received from across the state and our nation.
And it goes on to say there is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. We are devastated by the loss of Melissa and Mark, and our hearts go out to all those who knew and loved them both. We are always at our best when we unite together again. That is from the Hoffman family, presumably written by Yvette, the wife of Senator John Hoffman, both recovering from multiple gunshot wounds. Senator Hoffman receiving 9 bullet hits and Yvette receiving 8 bullet hits. Amazing, and miraculously both are expected to survive.
It's amazing to hear from them tonight. This is the first time we've been able to actually hear from them, and it's wonderful to be able to get their reaction to this, and of course their daughter Hope, who was also in the home at the time and who we learned today is the one who ended up calling 911, and we just want to continue to remember them, and of course the Hortmans as well. Do we want to check in with Paul? Is he in a place to chat with us? Okay.
I think you're going to hear from Paul is that this was a law enforcement teamwork, huge amount of officers working on the capture of Luther Bolter, and so your take, basically big teamwork, biggest manhunt in Minnesota history, Paul, and they are relieved as much as we are that this man has been captured.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to unpack during that news conference as someone who jumped into coverage on this yesterday morning, reporting live outside the Hortman house, seeing that fake police squad car in that driveway. And I asked Drew Evans, I hope you heard that exchange, how important was the fact that Brooklyn Park Police went and checked the Hortman house. Tragically, they got there too late, but according to the charges, they got there as they saw this gunman, believed to be Vance Bolter, fire and kill Mark Hortman, and then he had to abandon the vehicle. He was then on foot. Criminal complaint, unsealed tonight, would show there were several more guns, more ammunition, more weaponry in that security car. And the superintendent just said up there confidently that if he gets out of that neighborhood with that vehicle, with his list, his manifesto, a lot more likely would have happened along the lines of further tragedies.
Paul-
As it is, we lost Speaker Emerita. Yes, sorry, Amy.
No, go
Yes.
ahead, and I apologize for folks at home. There's a little bit of a delay here. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but at that point, I just wanted to sort of stop you and take folks through a little bit of the timeline there, because we know that after he fled that scene, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was that scene in Minneapolis where the vehicle was, where he knocked out. Can you kind of take us through that? Because that looks to be sort of where he went after he left the Brooklyn Park scene. Is that right?
Right, he would have fled on foot. He got out the back doors, went back of the house, went out onto Edenborough Golf Course, and then next spotted in Minneapolis. Photos of him at a business, photos of him, or video of him. We think getting into like his vehicle, knocking out a window, maybe picking up stuff around 6 a.m. Authorities had thought they had maybe contained him to a 3-mile square. Remember, there was that shelter-in-place order up in Brooklyn Park, but he clearly got out of there, and then would have picked up that vehicle that then is subsequently abandoned early today in Sibley County, that Buick. And remarkably, we just learned that they thought a police officer spotted him running into the woods. We talked in one of our earlier live shots, didn't we, about did they have this feeling that he was close once they found the hat? The car, you wonder now if he was running into the woods, and now the hat's on the ground. You start kind of potentially picking, kind of connecting some dots here. Did he take off into the woods, and that's where he's been, all this time? Eventually, they would obviously. It sounded like, we've reported the drone use to pinpoint his exact location. We understand a trail camera was a key helper in identifying exactly where he was in that rural area of Sibley County. And then we had the helicopter. We had not heard that before, but the State Patrol helicopter, which would make sense that was providing even further, altitudinal, perspective on the ground below, a wooded area, swampy area, maybe difficult for people on the ground to make out an individual who's crawling around in the dirt, as we've been told he was. But that is what led these SWAT teams, and it was interesting to me. Again, I had to have something of a relationship with the Brooklyn Park Police Chief, Mark Bruley, but this remained their case. You heard that in his voice, and it sounded like he was proud that it was his SWAT team that was initially. I mean, everyone will agree it was a massive law enforcement team effort, but I just heard in Mark Bruley's comments and his belief that this was their case, this was their speaker, this was their hometown that was so tragically crushed by what happened early Saturday morning, what's been described as a political assassination in Melissa Hortman's home on Edenborough Golf Course yesterday morning. Now to the culmination, he is in custody, Vance Bolter. They would not say where he is being held right now. They did say law enforcement is questioning him. I thought a couple of other interesting points that we should revisit. The fact that Drew Evans, the BCA superintendent, did list several other states of who was on this manifesto. I know authorities were trying to redefine what they meant by the manifesto. It might have been ramblings, notes, thoughts. It wasn't an edict. It wasn't a directive of what he was going to do, but it sort of conveyed what he was feeling. Drew Evans listing off Wisconsin, which we had known about. Some reporting locally had said several lawmakers in Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska. So several states have been alerted to the fact that names are on that list. And it is a scary time all across the metro. I've used this anecdote today talking to a suburban police chief whose city was not immediately impacted by what took place, but he's had to put squads out in front of even people not on the list, all of his lawmakers' homes in the jurisdiction that he covers because of the concern that Bolter may be targeting other people. He was alive. He was on foot. We didn't know where he was. Tonight, authorities knew where he was. They went in, massive team effort down there, and he is now in custody. I don't see the video return right now, but we obviously have that photo of him that has been shared widely tonight. There it is. Law enforcement SWAT teams in those military-like fatigues, the helmets, and Bolter, in custody. Superintendent Evans did not want to say what Bolter may have said upon his arrest, but he did clearly surrender peacefully.
Paul.
He put his hands up. He followed the voices as he was commanded to, and he's under arrest. Yeah, Randy, sorry about that.
Just a couple things there, and you're on the same vein
Yeah.
as I'm trying to get some more details. The question was asked a couple times if whether or not law enforcement or investigators believe that anyone helped him. That was one thing. The other thing that was addressed was whether or not federal charges would come into play, and I know that that was a question that was asked early on as well. Address those for us if you can.
Yeah, let me take the federal. We understand a federal warrant was issued, a federal arrest warrant bulletin was put out nationwide out of an abundance of caution, was my understanding. I thought there were some underlying charges that went with that. The superintendent described eluding authorities, eluding prosecution as a federal offense, and that the warrant went out under that premise. He sort of backtracked, though, in his verbiage tonight, just saying the state charges are now unsealed, and now we'll consult with the feds to see if certain charges are appropriate. So I was curious about that. That's going to require a little bit more digging. But certainly the state charges commence immediately. Those were filed under seal. They were released. We had the details earlier. I don't have able to quote, but again, heavy weaponry found in his SUV, a bunch of evidence, the mask that we see, that one photo of him in that creepy old, mask and silicone-type mask, which we believe now, connecting the dots, that photo was taken outside the home of Senator Hoffman. That was dropped, the mask, the badge, trying to remember, the guns in the car. But there's the mask picture. We now know that the mask was dropped. The replica, a badge. Remember, I just remember, yesterday, Mark Bruley saying if that guy showed up in the room of law enforcement, you saw his badge, it would have looked just like mine. This guy would have looked just like law enforcement. And you think about who was in this room a moment ago and how law enforcement felt their commitment, their service was violated by this guy showing up in the dark of night to two lawmakers' home under the guise of being law enforcement, to wake those folks up and then to attempt to assassinate and clearly in the Hortman house assassinate, a husband and wife, a lawmaker. This meant so much to law enforcement. I told you earlier I was kind of curious the tone it would take, and I think you saw, what it was. Clearly, from the governor's emotion, still this can't happen again. The loss of a dear friend, a glass-breaking Speaker of the House and Melissa Hortman, to the law enforcement, to Brooklyn Pride, taking pride that this was their case, their SWAT team. They were going to get this guy today. And here we are 43 hours later, the state's largest manhunt in its history, according to Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley.
And Paul, just up on the screen there a moment ago, we just had a list of sort of the arsenal, some of the weapons that were found in his vehicle. And, we talk about the question you asked, which I think a lot of us who've been following this since the beginning have really looked at that pivotal moment when that Brooklyn Park sergeant in the middle of the night has that feeling and says, we need to proactively send a couple of officers to the Hortman home. And that timing, and while, you can look at it and say, well, they got there a little late. Of course, yes, there's that. And also, wow, look at what they thwarted here, and the fact that it completely changed. We can only assume completely changed the course of what the suspect was going to do that day. Talk a little bit about, too, the fact that, 43 hours, Chief Bruley said, 43 hours. The fact that everything that has happened in the last 43 hours, and there was no additional loss of life, public, law enforcement, it is just incredible given all the unknowns with this suspect.
And worth pointing out, Amy, we learned in this news conference when he was arrested, he was armed. So he still had weaponry with him. They did not elaborate on what he was found with, but he clearly kept some type of weaponry as he's on the run, on foot. But yes, the superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension was crystal clear to my question that more tragedy would have unfolded had those Brooklyn Park police officers not encountered a bolter on the front stoop of the Hortman home. Tragic, the losses that occurred that day, but the lives that were saved by that action, putting him on foot My perception, as I'm just kind of processing it through my head and, trying to make sense of what could have been, I was thinking if he gets into that vehicle, maybe he's long gone by that point. He's no longer on foot. He doesn't have to go back to familiar turf, right? He goes back to the room he rented, we now know, in Minneapolis. He came back towards Sibley County, where we know he has property. I wanted to ask how close the arrest was to his actual property. I didn't get a chance to do that. I would be curious to know that. But my thought was, without the vehicle, he now had no, immediate plan to get away. But in hindsight, now that we see what was found in that SUV, I believe, and it doesn't matter what I believe, the superintendent said it, the BCA, the lead law enforcement guy in this state said, no doubt further tragedy would have had unfolded if not for that encounter on the front stoop of the Hortman home early yesterday morning.
Paul, it's been described as a political assassination by some, including us, and I think that's probably fairly safe in this situation, but it does beg the question, motive in a situation like that. That was addressed tonight, but it was brushed off in that they said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're working hard at looking at what the motive may have been. I assume that the manifesto, or what's described as a manifesto, would lend clue to that.
Yeah, the manifesto will be key. What do those readings say? The scrawlings, I think perhaps more importantly, I don't know the state of mind of this man at this point, but does he open up to authorities? There was sort of, as you think about the different scenarios, how this plays out, I think there probably are some people who are surprised he was taken alive and that he is in custody. And now he has the ability to speak out. I mean, I hate to bring up connecting this to anything else, but I think of the Mangione, the United Healthcare, killing assassination that so touched Minnesota as well. When someone is taken alive and has a political, message to share, what comes out, what do we hear, what does he say in court, what does he say when we see him next? I mean, here's a guy now, this begins a criminal process. Within 48 hours, he's going to have to make a first criminal court appearance. So I will be very curious to hear what he says. And then, yes, how the manifesto, again, it was described a little differently, more notes, more thinking, more thoughts. Why did he target these two lawmakers in particular, Champlin, Brooklyn Park? I mean, he's, as far as we know, he lives in Green Isle. He rents in Minneapolis. He's on this nonpartisan, board with the state of Minnesota. Where does, you need to start putting the pieces together. And I'm not an expert at this point on the man's life, but suffice to say, now that he's taken alive, you would certainly think we might get more insights into what he was thinking, why he tried to carry this out. And again, there are more names on this list, more states. Has he been in contact with other people? I'm curious to see how this unravels beyond just him. But as you heard authorities say tonight, right now, he is the one responsible for these just heinous attacks here in our home state.
Paul, I was wondering if anybody would ask, and maybe I guess it's not as relevant at this moment, but his family, wife, and we understand children as well, and they did come into play. At least the wife did come into play in some of this. Do you want to kind of go over that and what we know about what happened?
Yeah, we were able to ask Superintendent Evans about the wife earlier today. So yesterday morning, mid to late morning, the shelter-in-place order would have been in effect in Brooklyn Park. Up in Onamia, so Mille Lacs County, total other direction, straight north up towards Lake Mille Lacs. Mille Lacs County, another county, probably, Randy would probably know a little better, but probably about an hour away from the metro in that direction. There is a traffic stop conducted. And I'm going to use the term detained. There were no arrests, but they stopped a vehicle that had Vance Bolter's wife and several other family members. We have confirmed that there were passports, there was cash in that car. Others have reported there was some weaponry in there. We know they held on to those folks, the wife, perhaps kids, but definitely loved ones, and questioned them, searched the vehicle. They felt the family was cooperative, so cooperative to the point that they ended up releasing them, that they were allowed to go on their way. And there were a lot of questions. I had them earlier today. Like, why not hold, family, even if there's no direct connection, but as the superintendent said at that point, they cooperated, and in these times, people may act alone. I also think about that close friend at the Minneapolis, rooming house where he rented a room. They were reading text messages yesterday, sort of absolving them of any involvement. There was definitely, the authorities did confirm there was contact being made between him and other people close to him. They didn't necessarily feel they were being material aid, that they weren't necessarily helping him evade police or evade arrest. But yeah, that wife, I'd be curious to know more, and perhaps we'll learn more in the coming days. But in the end, there was a traffic stop conducted. And they just felt the family had cooperated enough to the point where they were allowed to continue on their own. Perhaps an indication, if we read it, for what it is, that this man acted alone, at least as in relation to his own family.
Yeah. Paul, Governor Walz was the first to speak tonight. His message was fairly clear that, and I'll just quote one thing that he said. Melissa was the core of who we are in Minnesota. He was referencing her ability to bring, politically speaking, two sides together to just even discuss what can be a very diametrically opposed political environment at the state legislature at times. And he said that we should commit ourselves to the core value of who we are in this country and use that to discuss politics and discuss issues and then shake hands afterward. That was his description of who Melissa was. You have been around her as well. You've covered politics as much as any of us have. Give us some insight as to what he was sort of reading for the public there to take in.
Yeah. I doubt we could turn around the tweet he put out this morning. I forget the exact verbiage he used in the tweet with her. It looked like, signing legislation, maybe signing something in the Capitol. Do you remember, Amy, what he wrote? But
I'm pulling
behemoth.
It up.
I mean, shattered glasses. Okay, yeah.
We'll get it up on the screen.
But no,
in a second,
she took a crushing vote 1 week ago to pass the bipartisan budget, a state that is deeply divided. And I've kind of moved away from covering the Capitol, but our legislature is one of one or two in the country that has a divided legislature. And while it took overtime, we certainly got to a balanced budget this year, thanks certainly in large part to the leaders in both parties. And no, you could tell yesterday the emotion he shared yesterday. I remember Corin Hoggard, my Capitol colleague, was here yesterday, and he remarked that as soon as Walz was done speaking, emotional, just crushed, having just learned of the assassination of his clearly a dear friend, he left the room. And I will point out that Walz did leave the room as soon as he finished his remarks here tonight. But no, clearly he is deeply touched. Yes, that's the tweet, Governor Walz. I probably can't read it, Amy. You'll probably have to do it. But
it says
consequential.
The most consequential speaker in state history, and that was really echoed yesterday by everyone we spoke with. That she really, her footprint will be left on the state of Minnesota, policies, people, the relationships for forever. I mean, just that much of an impact.
She certainly is not an unknown. I mean, any given night on our air here on Fox 9, you would have heard from her or have seen her during the legislative process. She was front and center for several years now, in fact.
Yeah.
So the loss of her from Governor Walz's perspective and many, many others, regardless of your political affiliation in this state, is deeply felt by all of those. And I think that's kind of what the governor was trying to relay to people, that enough is enough on the political debate that goes far beyond what we as Minnesotans and certainly as we as U.S. citizens should tolerate, and that this sort of violence directed toward political ideals or political moves is unacceptable.
Yeah, Paul may want to answer that. I know we have a little lag here.
No, I mean, yeah, no, he said it. Yeah, he said it very clearly. And again, I just, the one thing that kind of sort of comes into my mind, she takes this tough vote. Her caucus, she made clear, was not happy with her. But then where was she Friday night? Back at a big DFL, celebration event. Everybody speaking about how special it was to have her there, connecting with the lawmakers that we interviewed throughout all of yesterday. She was huge in that party, a party leader. And yeah, no, Wallace says this has to end here. The political rhetoric, yeah, he was overwhelmed by it, and you know, we shall see what comes from it. If this is a moment in time that changes anything, obviously remains to be seen. Clearly, the security question will ratchet up. I mean, I think about these last couple of days while squads are outside every lawmaker's home across the state. I mean, that's crazy. You know, we don't have metal detectors at this point in the Capitol. Does that, you know, become a debate?
He mentioned the prevalence of political mean tweets,
we go
Paul.
in that don't. Yeah.
He mentioned
yeah, perhaps you should speak. Yeah.
Yeah, he said, you know, the political mean tweets that we see during the legislative session or anytime, just unacceptable and unwarranted and need to end because it can create an atmosphere where horrible things can happen. And nobody is saying that this is how it went down, but it certainly is it's certainly an element in today's political world.
Yeah. It is a reality.
Yeah.
Paul, if I could, you know, there have been so many questions that people have had about this manhunt, and I think at the front of a lot of people's minds was, of course, law enforcement, but just out of curiosity, people kept saying, how is he getting around? How, you know, was this something that was so coordinated that there were other people who had cars here and there? But if you could just kind of walk us through the path and what we know about the means to each of those locations, that might be really helpful here as we're trying to understand.
Yeah, and clearly I will only know what I know, but obviously he abandons the security vehicle, that police-looking vehicle that is in the Hortman driveway that he's confronted by gunfire at the front door by Brooklyn Park Police. There's that car. That's the security car. That's where they find the guns. That's where they find his manifesto. It looks like a squad car, but he abandons that. He's now on foot. So as we piece this together, I think he gets into Minneapolis, right? 6 a.m. as we understand it. He goes to that rooming house, and perhaps he gets one of his vehicles because this Buick that would eventually be abandoned early this morning in Sibley County is connected to him. So, I mean, where he is in the sort of that 12-hour period, I don't know if we've gotten a clearer picture from law enforcement. But I mean, I will point out, you know, he would have had time in that second vehicle that he would abandon in Sibley County. He would have had time to drive away and not kind of drive back towards property of his. I am curious, you know, again, what the mindset was there. You know, you'd be long gone, right? The question was asked earlier today, do you think he's on his way to Canada? Like, well, you know, it just seems odd in terms of if you're thinking, you know, I hate to say it, like a potential madman, like, you know, get out of here. But, you know, he stayed close, and, you know, the car's abandoned in Sibley County. Now we have come to learn that a police officer might have seen the abandoned car and even seen him on foot running into the woods. So now he's on foot in this area. I know one of the other reporters had asked about reports that he was on a bicycle at some point in that rural area of Sibley County. Maybe he got on one of those. But clearly now that this day with this abandoned car being found at the time he did, and likely an eyeball spotting him, he would have been on foot or something similar, whether it's a bike or not, but in that area for, you know, what would have amounted to, you know, 12, 18 hours down there in Sibley County. But yeah, you know, from the security car to the car at his Minneapolis, you know, rooming house to being abandoned in Sibley County and then on foot. I mean, that's my quick understanding. Maybe there's another vehicle in there, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know our Mary McGuire, who was at the Minneapolis location most of yesterday, who spoke with the roommate there, said it was she thought about a 7-mile stretch between Brooklyn Park and this home. Yeah, this is the Minneapolis home right here where we're told that Vance Bolter, by the roommate, rented a room. In fact, that front room right there that you're seeing is the room that he rented. And the law enforcement had to go in and, you know, sort of batter ram their way into that home. And this also is where, Paul, you talk about the communication. We don't know how much communication there was between Vance Bolter and anyone except for the communication that he apparently had with that roommate.
Yeah, and if we can go back to that Sibley County video just quick, Lori. Paul was describing that scene earlier as well, and the one point that they brought out tonight, and you're going to see this road, this gravel road, and down there in the distance, you'll see the car abandoned, and he allegedly ran into that woods. He was picked up, we believe, by our sources, by a trail camera. That was the first sign that he had been identified in that area on foot. So it's that area you're seeing right there. The abandoned vehicle ran. He was spotted by someone. Law enforcement was described by law enforcement, a man running into that woods. We found out later tonight that it was, through our sourcing, that it was he was picked up on a trail cam, and then subsequently after that picked up on drone footage in real-time video as they closed in on him.
Yeah. And you know, what's so interesting is, you know, we're following all of this, and we're following each development where law enforcement is, and now they're moving here to search and there. But this is someone who is on the run and, you know, is not privy probably to the same information and is just kind of doing his thing. But to Paul's point, the fact that after the crimes, he's back in a familiar location, and then apparently, according to, you know, sort of the timeline here that we've been given by law enforcement, at some point leaves there in a familiar vehicle, and then goes, you know, ends up back in a familiar spot, is just sort of mind-boggling.
And I think as we discussed this tonight before we hit the air, I think many were surprised that he went back, obviously for obvious reason, that he would go back to that area. Then as the night wore on, Paul, we were surprised also that he surrendered without incident. I think some people, the presumption was that if he's going back to this area, the intent might have been something more nefarious than surrendering peacefully to law enforcement.
Yeah, we just obviously don't know what was going through his mind. There is that arrest photo that I'm sure will be on a lot of newspapers in the morning, front pages. But yes, he was surrounded. I mean, the manpower down there. What did Bruley say? Chief Bruley, I think they had 20 full SWAT teams on location. I had seen earlier in the day when all of the manpower was heading down there. I'm going to forget the verbiage I had seen, but kind of talking about like a defensive tactic, and I'm like, that's a show of force going on the offensive. Like they saturated that area with law enforcement, heavy, you know, weaponry, the presence of the manpower, 100 plus men and women in uniform are down there, 20 SWAT teams, and you know, I don't know if he saw the response and thought it best to surrender. But you know, we listened into the audio a little earlier. You know, they said they had an arrest warrant. They asked him to put up his hands. They asked him to stand up and walk towards their voice, and he clearly did that. And there, his arrest in that photograph.
All right, Paul, we're gonna wrap you up here for just stand by for us, though. We do appreciate you being there. A lot of information thrown at you tonight, as well as the general public. So thank you for going through that with us. A lot of details. Obviously, this stuff will be boiled down and gone through over the next several hours. We'll have much more detail coming up tomorrow. Appreciate you being there, Paul.
At the scene,
You bet. Thank you.
near the farm where all of this happened, is our Karen Scullin. Karen, before we kind of talk about tonight, I just want to reiterate the fact that you actually, I got a call about 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. You were up for whatever reason in the middle of the night, that night, and happened to check a phone, and that's sort of what got the ball rolling for all of us to kind of get into place, because you kind of had the sense that something was starting to happen.
Yeah, I make it a rule to not check my phone in the middle of the night if I wake up, but I did. I don't know why I did, yes, and started getting texts and things like that. So it's been an intense couple of days for sure. And you know, it was interesting. We arrived sort of right after he was captured. Of course, we have another crew here in the area, and the officers and the police and the SWAT teams were already kind of, some were leaving and some were still around here, but clearly there was a sense of pride and a sense of gratitude and relief that this guy was in fact now in custody. Now we're outside the Belter home, which has been the focus of a lot of searching over the last couple of days. Obviously quiet right now, a few lights on there. This is about a mile maybe from where he was captured in that field. by all the officers and the SWAT teams and such. So we're about a mile from there. Interesting thing, after he was captured, I happened to come upon the home here, and there was a bunch of SWAT teams and officers pulling into the house. I kind of wondered why. I really don't know why, since he had been captured. Maybe they needed to retrieve something from the home, or he let them know there was something inside there. I'm not quite sure. We did speak to a neighbor who lives right across the street here, and his name was Neil Kinzer, and he said they'd lived here for about 1.5 years. And he didn't know Vance at all, but except for waving and kind of the mailbox type thing. But he certainly was glad that he had been captured. He was never really scared, but certainly a lot of activity all around his home for the last couple of days was making him uneasy, and he was kind of, I think, getting a little bit tired of it. But he had heard, that he was probably surrounded and about to be brought into custody, because he heard a lot of activity in the area here. So he was glad it was over, and I'd say they cleared out about an hour ago. So definitely calm around here now, and certainly a sense of relief. I find it interesting too, there was a lot of media around here, and when I pulled up, there was a crew from Sweden here, and I thought, wow, this case, it's really not just impacting Minnesota and Minneapolis, but not only the nation, but the world. To see a crew from Sweden here, I didn't have a chance to ask them why, why make the trip here for this story. We were both kind of run in the opposite directions, but interesting the impact this has really had on so many people all around the world. It's just been really incredible, I think, for all of us. For police officers and everyone involved in this, not even those actively involved, but those who were watching the developments and kind of watching, the case over the last couple of days, not getting any sleep. The law enforcement, I see them on Facebook now kind of thanking their teams. I know Chaska was involved, Hennepin County was involved. I see them thanking for their teams, for their efforts, because it really was just such this multi-agency, not only local, but regional, federal, on every level, really putting so much effort, not only physically, but I think their hearts were in it, all the way through. And of course, everyone now breathing a sigh of relief that this guy is in jail tonight.
Yeah, described, Karen, as the largest manhunt in Minnesota history, and tonight we can see why. We appreciate that teamwork on incidents like this.
And Karen, I don't know if you know this and talking with the neighbor or not, but I think there are questions around that home. As you and I were on the air yesterday morning, it wasn't clear if he was living there, if his family was there with him. And then there's that Minneapolis residence where he was renting. Do we know, was this the family home, or how much do we know about that?
That's a good question. He just mentioned that Vance had lived there for about 1.5 years. I didn't ask any further questions about if the entire family was living there. So he said about 1.5 years, and never any problems with them, quiet, that kind of thing, just the high and by type stuff with the neighbor. Obviously surprised and shocked at everything that has unfolded, though, in this area and with his neighbor. So again, breathing a sigh of relief tonight.
Karen, one quick thing, because you brought it up, and that is the proximity to the arrest to the actual Bolter family farm there. Is it the same was he on the farm property when he was arrested? Could you tell? You mentioned 1 mile away. That tells me it probably wasn't necessarily right on the family property. Is that correct?
Certainly not right in the vicinity. I don't know how much land they owned. So it was quite a ways away in a farm field. There's a lot of fields here. I mean, it's basically all farming out here. I can tell you the amount of law enforcement that was present was incredible. I believe we're showing you chopper video of the house right now. And, just really a focus of this search for the last couple of days. And, interesting, earlier today, I was thinking when, the BCA and they were giving their update that, really they hadn't found him, and there was just, a little bit of this and that found out here. I thought that the sort of feeling was that he had left the area. And so to hear that he was actually around here still and captured certainly surprised me and some of the crews out here. But, law enforcement all of a sudden, sprung into action right around, I guess maybe it was around 9 o'clock or so. So there was all of a sudden a lot of movement and people kind of going crazy. So it was something.
All right, Karen, we appreciate you being there. Appreciate your diligence with this. I know it's been a long 36 hours, so thank you for being there tonight for us as well. Appreciate it.
I wonder, Lori, if we should just bring back up that the statement from what appears to be Yvette Hoffman, if we could. Okay, she's going to pull that back up for us because again, this is.
This came in tonight.
It did. It came in tonight, and so just really wanted to sort of read through this again. This is the first time we are hearing from the Hoffman family, and it seems specifically from Yvette Hoffman. First and foremost, John and I hold a deep and profound gratitude for the work of our law enforcement agencies and the public for their help in bringing the suspect to justice, while diligently keeping our communities safe during this extremely difficult and senseless event.
Goes on to say, John and I are both, obviously Yvette wrote this, John and I are both incredibly lucky to be alive. We continue our healing journey and are humbled by the outpouring of love and support. I will say, just to interject, both were shot multiple times. John shot 9 times and Yvette shot 8 times. So their wounds were incredible, and the fact that they're still with us is miraculous in many ways. She goes on to say, we're humbled by the outpouring of love and support our family has received from across the state and our nation.
Yeah, and I think there's one more here. Yeah, there is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. We are devastated by the loss of Melissa and Mark, and our hearts go out to all those who knew and loved them both. We are always at our best when we unite together. And we're going to put up their pictures here as well. Also learning tonight that their daughter, who we understand is 28 years old, Hope. We've done some stories and things where she's been mentioned, and John, fierce advocate for those with disabilities. Hope has spina bifida, and so she's sort of been at the forefront of his inspiration to be such an advocate at the Capitol, as he was for so many. Different issues that were so important to him, and the latest tonight is that he has had his final surgery, according to officials, and he is recovering. And then Yvette, the way it was phrased is that Yvette is healing, and the fact that we were able to get the statement from her tonight is, I think, brings a lot of comfort to a lot of people.
You mentioned Hope. She was actually the one who had to call 911 saying that her parents had been shot. We found that out in the statement of probable cause. Statement on suspect's arrest. This is from Minnesota Senate DFL. The arrest of the suspected shooter brings relief to our entire state, yet this unimaginable tragedy will change us forever, no doubt about that. Our deepest thanks go to the first responders, law enforcement officials, and medical providers across the state for their life-saving and tireless work. That was sort of the theme of much of what we heard tonight from law enforcement. This was a team effort, and when they say team, the largest manhunt in Minnesota history to arrest Vance Luther Belter. One more thing, I think we should clean up some details as we move this story forward before we wrap it up tonight, and that is what charges now face Bolter. There are 4 counts. I will briefly read them for you. I'll bring them up on the screen if I can. Count 1, it's the charge murder in the 2nd degree with intent, not premeditated. I'm not sure about that one. Some of these charges could change. And the charge description, I'll only read this once because it's similar in each one. It says, on or about June 14th in Hennepin County, Minnesota, Vance Luther Bolter, acting with the intent to kill, caused the death of victim 1. We can presume victim 1 was either Representative Melissa Hortman or her husband, Mark. And then in count 2, same 2nd degree murder with the intent, not premeditated, same description, victim 2. Then we move on to count 3. This would be the attempted murder charges in the 2nd degree. They listed as murder. That may get amended, but right now it's listed as murder in the 2nd degree. Attempted to cause the death of victim 3 using a firearm. Same with count 4. Murder attempted, caused the death of victim 4. Those were, of course, John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, who are, as Amy just pointed out, recovering tonight, thankfully, from multiple gunshot wounds.
Yeah. As we're sort of, wrapping things up here for the evening, and I just wanted to also just spend just a short amount of time on a couple of things because there's been so much misinformation that has been put out there, as is normal in this time when people are trying to get information as quickly as possible and then things spin. But I just wanted to bring up a couple that are sort of coming to the forefront more and more and more. First and foremost, people are talking about, the manifesto. We were told today to kind of reel back on that word manifesto, because what it really is a list and then some ramblings, in a notebook. They wanted to make sure, law enforcement, that we're not depicting it as this sort of like ideological, well-formed, formal document, but rather, a list and some different ramblings. Also, something that's been brought up a lot in the last, 40 some hours is Vance Bolter's role as a member of a workforce development advisory board, and being appointed by Governor Walz, first Governor Dayton, and then reappointed by Governor Walz. It is an appointment. You were appointed. This is a bipartisan council. And it's really important to sort of point that out, that these are a lot of times civilians, business owners, workforce development. There are many different members of the community who are a part of this, and you oftentimes don't even have access to sort of, the governor or whomever. It's just, you're just sort of an advisory board. And then just one other thing that is sort of unfortunate here that it's important to bring up. We have an article on our website, but there happens to be a woman named Jennifer Bolter who works in St. Cloud at a hospital there. She shares the same name as the wife of Vance Bolter, and CentraCare again confirmed to us today. This is not. She has nothing to do with this. Not the same family. There's no affiliation here. But I just kind of wanted to point out a couple of the things that we know to be facts, that as you're on social media, in the coming days, that you can kind of start to separate some of the fact from rumor and speculation.
Part of it is to remove the political rhetoric that will undoubtedly and does undoubtedly surround something like this. We do not know the political affiliation, at least as it's relative to this story. A lot of presumptions being thrown about in social media on this. We don't have the answer to that, and I don't know that we will. And it'll be part of the investigation, as pointed out tonight by law enforcement and the BCA, that there's a lot to dig into with this list, and as you point out, the ramblings of this man as they work through the investigation, and also to work through whether or not federal charges come into play in a situation like this.
It's time to take just a deep breath. It's been an incredible 43 hours. Congratulations to law enforcement. We're so grateful for their sacrifices and putting their lives on the line to protect our communities. It's been a really tough couple of days for a lot of people, specifically those who have been impacted by losing loved ones and going through this, and then those who were on that list. It's just been
a couple things we want to end this broadcast with, and that is the governor had some things to say about Melissa Hortman. I think it's important to reiterate those, listen to the governor, and then, as you can imagine, there is a growing memorial at the state capitol to remember what happened and to remember the contributions of those people in our state and in our lives. So I'm going to send you to the governor's comments just really about an hour or so ago. And no, I guess we don't have time.
You know what I think we should do? Let's end it here. I think we have some video we want to show of the Capitol, but we just want to say, say Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman. Our thoughts are with their children. They have 2 children, and then John Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman, wishing them the best in their recovery, and our thoughts, our prayers are with their daughter Hope as well, as she's been through so much, and I think we can just kind of leave you with this shot here.
Know that he's been arrested. Vance Luther Bolter's been arrested, and the rest will lie in the hands of the criminal justice system, and details will come out as the days tick off.
your student loan payment make you cringe? We get it. Saying goodbye to that much money every month can be tough, but by refinancing to a lower rate through Credible.com, you could drastically cut your monthly payments. At Credible, you get personalized rates from multiple lenders, so it's easy to find the refi that puts the most cash back in your pocket. And life with extra cash is, well, extra. Visit Credible.com now to see your new monthly student loan payment.
A third row that feels like first class, how it should be. The Hyundai Palisade.
Lease the Hyundai Palisade for $392 a month or get 2.99% APR for 48 months. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today.
Your next car is just a couple of clicks away. CarHop has a great selection of low-priced used cars, trucks, and SUVs. Start your online approval at CarHop.com today.
CarHop, cars and credit to go.
Looking for the ultimate Acura experience? Look no further than Luther Bloomington Acura, the proud #1 Acura dealer in Minnesota for 22 years in a row. At Luther Bloomington Acura, we're all about speed, convenience, and transparency with the best prices, best selection, and best service. Right now, lease the all-new 2025 Acura ADX for $489 a month. At Luther Bloomington Acura, you can trust us to deliver excellence at every turn. Stop in or visit us online today.
Let Window Concepts of Minnesota transform your home with 80% off installation. Save on windows, doors, siding, bath, showers, and patio doors. Call today and get 80% off installation. Plus no interest and no payments for 18 months. And with every free estimate, Window Concepts will give you a $50 Target gift card.
Call Window Concepts at 877-264-8713 or log on to windowconceptsmn.com. At 651 Carpets, we make your flooring project as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Call or click to schedule your free estimate. 2. Our team comes to your home to show you our wide variety of flooring options and help you make the right choice. 3. We professionally install your new floors as soon as the next day. It's that easy. Give us a call today or go to our website at 651carpets.com to get your next project started. 651 Carpets, your premier Twin Cities carpet and flooring company.
Does your student loan payment make you cringe? By refinancing to a lower rate through Credible.com, you could drastically cut your monthly payments. At Credible, you get personalized rates from multiple lenders. Visit Credible.com now to see your new monthly student loan payment.
For over 80 years, Minnesotans have trusted Walker Roofing to install millions of square feet of roofing across the Twin Cities. And now through Wednesday during their 000 sale, get the roof you need and don't pay a cent for 18 months. Call for your free no-contact estimate today.
A third row that feels like first class, how it should be. The Hyundai Palisade.
Lease the Hyundai Palisade for $392 a month or get 2.99% APR for 48 months. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today.
Did you know you can have assisted living services right in your own home? Our skilled caregivers at Baywood Home Care can assist you with companion care, complex care, or anything in between.
I don't have to worry about the cleaning. I don't have to worry about the food. I've enjoyed Baywood, and I like the way Baywood trains their girls. The Baywood girls are good company.
People should love where they live. Contact Baywood Home Care to learn more.
You need answers after a car or truck accident. You need protection from auto insurance companies that won't play fair. You need help paying bills and for your recovery now and in the future. You need Sieben Carey, Minnesota's original personal injury law firm. We're award-winning attorneys who know how to get car accident victims and their families everything they deserve. Get a free evaluation of your accident case now at knowyourrights.com. That's knowyourrights.com.
To the Gold Star families with us today, the courage of your heroes is the bedrock on which our entire nation stands. We thank you. Yes, we thank you. Today we commemorate an event that did not just change American history, but changed the history of the entire world with the creation of America's Army on June 14th, 1775. Liberty got its shield and the freedom got its sword. Those first Army patriots in the American Revolution fought against a fearsome enemy and impossible odds, but they were armed with a righteous cause. They were led by an indomitable commander, a truly great man, General George Washington, and they were united by an eternal creed. Their motto was victory or death. Over the past 2.5 centuries, our warriors have shown unrivaled valor on fields of battle around the globe. With the frostbitten feet and bloody fist, they have marched into the flames and fury of combat, charged up mountains, stormed beaches, waded through torrents of gunfire, and leapt into skies thick with smoke and shrapnel. The U.S. Army has driven bayonets into the heart of sinister empires, crushed the ambitions of evil tyrants. Beneath the threads of American tanks, it's done so well, it's done so much, and sent the devil himself flying into full retreat. Time and again, America's enemies have learned that if you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you. Your defeat will be certain, your demise will be final, and your downfall will be total and complete. Because our soldiers never give up, never surrender, and never, ever quit. They fight, 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 and they win, win, win. And that's why no institution in history has entered more names into the roster of American heroes than the U.S. Army, the Congressional Medal of Honor, more than anyone or anything. There was Mad Anthony Wayne, asked by George Washington to lead a daring midnight raid up the cliffs of Stony Point with unloaded muskets and only their bayonets to fight the redcoats. Mad Anthony replied, "Issue the order, sir, and I will storm into hell for you." Then there was the Civil War general, John Corse, shot in the face in combat. He fired off a message to his commander: "I am short a cheekbone and one ear, but I am able to whip the hell out of all of them." He stayed on the front lines, it seemed forever. In World War II, there was the great Creighton Abrams, besieged on all sides by the Nazis at the Battle of the Bulge. He boldly proclaimed, "They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards." This is the fighting spirit and unyielding force of the U.S. Army. It has never changed, and it will never, ever change, because there is no earthly force more powerful than the brave heart of a U.S. infantryman or an Army Ranger, paratrooper, or Green Beret. They are the best, they are the finest. From Bunker Hill to San Juan Hill, from Gettysburg to Guadalcanal, from Yorktown to Shiloh, and from the trenches of the Argonne to the mountains of Afghanistan, the Army has forged a legacy of unmatched courage, untold sacrifice, and unequaled and undying glory. Our soldiers have poured out their blood by the bucketful on Missionary Ridge and Heartbreak Ridge, on the sands of Sicily, Normandy, and the Philippines, and on the dusty streets of Da Nang, Baghdad, and Fallujah. Thanks to their extraordinary service and devotion, 250 years later, America stands tall, America stands proud, and America stands free. We're the hottest country in the world right now. And our country will soon be greater and stronger than ever before. Down through history, we've been blessed beyond words by this valiant legion of Army warriors and patriots, heroes and legends. And tonight we affirm with unwavering certainty that in the years ahead and in every generation hence, whenever duty calls and whatever danger comes, the American soldier will be there. No matter the risk, no matter the obstacles, our warriors will charge into battle. They will plunge into the crucible of fire, and they will seize the crown of victory, because the United States of America will always have the grace of Almighty God and the iron will of the United States Army. Congratulations to everybody. We love our country. We've never done better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Army, and God bless America. And now I'd like to ask our great First Lady to join me at the podium. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
The Army Golden Knights, I would like to present to you this flag, which was flown over our nation's capital in free fall during the Army's 250th birthday celebration.